Welcome to the Chase Merrell podcast. I am your host, Chase Merrell, and we are all about helping people get freed up from what's holding them back so they can build up who they were made to be. On today's episode of the podcast, I have my friend Cody Churchill with me. Cody is an author, a writer, an editor, an author coach, and a podcast host, and he is one of the people in my life who has made an impact and is a part of this 52 project. I'm so excited to have this conversation with him, and also today, you're going to hear an update of something I've been excited to share with my friends and family and those that are supporting the podcast and what we're doing for a long time. And so get ready to jump into this conversation today, learn from Cody and hear more about who he is and the impact he's had on my life and some really exciting updates to share with you. If you want to help us continue to make an impact with this podcast week in and week out, consider joining our new Patreon community. For as little as a cup of coffee a month, you can be a part of helping us get the message and mission of the podcast out to more people more effectively. This is a way that we can come together as a community and you'll get access to behind the scenes stuff, additional resources and content, and so much more for just as little as $5 a month. You can head over to chasemerrell.com and click Patreon to jump in and get started. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Frontline Coffee Co. Delicious, bold, and expertly roasted small batch coffee for the everyday American. Frontline is not just about coffee. They're about supporting responders on the front lines, courageously caring for the rest of us. With every Frontline purchase, a percentage goes to supporting the brave men and women who are doing just that. Head over to frontlinecoffeeco.com and use promo code FREEDUP. That's FREEDUP, all one word, FREEDUP, to get 15% off your purchase. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Here we go, man. My God, Cody Churchill with me today on the podcast. Welcome, Cody.
Hello.
How you doing?
Not bad. The last couple weeks have been gorgeous.
Yeah,
and for someone who's like really gets down in the winter sometimes, this has been unreal.
Yeah, it really has been, absolutely beautiful in the Pacific Northwest. And we'll have to jump into some of, maybe if you're open, some of that world of like the seasonal thing, because
mental health.
Yeah, mental health. I have some questions about that that I'm excited to ask you maybe in the rest of the conversation. But jumping into this, you're here, man, because you've made an impact on my life. This whole 52 project thing is 52 conversations over these 52 weeks. This happens to be episode 21, and which I can't believe that we're actually at 21. And I just, in fact, I saw a statistic that came out, or I saw in a video just a couple weeks ago that basically there's like, I don't really know how true it is, but who sent it to me? I trust the source, and it was I don't know what video it was, but anyway, 1% of podcasts that start get past 20 episodes. So if that is as true as that source I believe to be true, like this episode crosses that threshold of us to be in the 1% of podcasts out there that are remaining.
Come on.
So like,
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. You're a part of that. Let's go.
History making in front of my eyes.
Thanks for being on here today. We have known each other over the last 5.5 years. 2017 is when I moved to Washington. You'd already been here and lived and raised here for a while.
Yep.
And we'll talk a little bit about why and how we became connected. But will you just introduce yourself to people that may not know who you are? Just a quick snapshot. Like, who is Cody Churchill in a nutshell? And like in this season of life, where are you at? Like, what's going on? Just to give people a quick snapshot.
Okay, yeah. I am Cody Churchill. I'm 27. I have, like Chase said, grown up in Olympia, Thurston County, pretty much my whole life, except for one brief stint in Tacoma. That's right. Yeah. And I have been married to Lauren Churchill for almost 4 years. Next week, it'll be 4 years.
4 years, dude.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest impacts Chase has had on my life is it was like in the movies you might see, like, Laura and I were kind of thinking about dating, and then there was a point where she really did not want to date me. And Chase came in one day and gave me some advice about how to approach our friendship and our relationship that really impacted me, even though I didn't want to hear it at the time. But more importantly, he talked to her, and it was like in the movies where that friend says, well, what if you gave Cody a chance? Or I think maybe you might have said something like, what if you never end up giving Cody a chance? How would you feel like later on in your life? And I could just imagine Chase like walking out of the room and then some inspiring music playing and Lauren like looking like, oh, he's right. Because that's exactly what happened is like a month or so later, she she like finally started accepting the fact that I I really wanted to date her.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah. I was just getting to know the two of you, but had enough time with both of you guys to be like, gosh, it just feels like this lines up. And yet there seems to be like, there just needs to be a bridge crossed here, you know, and so that was in one of those things where I was like, I don't really know you guys enough to really worry too much about you caring about my opinion.
Right.
So I could
yeah.
be pretty,
I had only known you for like a couple months.
And so I felt
point.
like probably this like unnecessary confidence with the two of you to be like, what are you guys doing? Like, this makes a lot of sense. This dude's amazing. This gal's amazing. And if you don't give this a chance, like you could be missing on somebody really incredible, you know, again, God's in, you're not going to mess this whole thing up, but like, don't potentially miss what could be. And to see the both of you guys grow into both the man and the woman of God that you are, and then together as a couple over the last 4 years has been incredible, dude.
Yeah. And so thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That moment.
You're welcome.
And that's one part, you know, I can't tell my story without that. Let's see what else. I say I'm 27. I think I did.
Yep.
I live here in Tumwater now. All my family's here, and we are really close, tight-knit family, which is cool. And then as far as work goes, I own and operate a copywriting and ghostwriting business, and I've been in that space for almost 3 years. I technically got my start in June 2020, operating it as a business, but I've done different writing and proofreading and editing things off and on, and wrote a book of my own back in 2017 or 18.
Yeah.
So that's what I do for fun, or not for fun. That's what I do for work.
Well, for people that understand ghostwriting or copywriting, you kind of mentioned it, editing and stuff like that. But what is that like? So people have more of an understanding.
Yeah. So what I like to think of it as is helping someone with whatever their project. Like, a lot of people have a business that has products or services they need to sell. And so copywriting is about essentially telling the story of their brand and communicating it in a way that resonates with their target audience or their target market, and ultimately compelling them into some kind of action, whether it's making a buy or at least going further down the discovery process. In, like, if they're maybe a consultant, maybe having a free call with them to start inquiring about like whether it's a good service for them. And so you're using the written word essentially to tell stories and captivate and convert. And it's not dissimilar to preaching in a way, where you are essentially using the written word and things that you have researched and put together to get people to think and get people to consider a different way even. And so that's the copywriting aspect. Ghostwriting is basically helping someone write a book. And that could look like a lot of different things, from meeting with them and helping them just clarify their strategy. What people don't often realize until they step into the ghostwriter or step into the writing space, like start their book project, is just how complex it can get. Like, as soon as you really start drafting it, you realize, oh man, one, I have a lot of words to write, but I don't know like what content or what ideas go where.
Right.
I don't know how to structure this thing. It's one of the most like complicated pieces of writing that you can put together. One of the most complicated pieces of communication you can put together. So it requires a tremendous amount of planning for you to end up with the right book and the right story, and making sure that you're telling and sharing what you want to share in a way that, again, resonates with your audience and changes their life for the better, ultimately, whether that's connecting them with a new idea or message or connecting them with a new product or service. A lot of people who hire a ghostwriter often have a new career they're stepping into, or they are experts in a certain industry, like a thought leader, and then they want to get all their thoughts down on paper, but they're not necessarily good at writing. They're good at communicating. They're good at leading a business. They're good at consulting. And so we work with them. Again, it could be from just coaching, just meeting with them to formulate their content, all the way to sitting down with them and interviewing them to pull out all the ideas in their general body of thought and sculpt it into a manuscript that the ghostwriter writes from week to week and maybe gets approval chapter by chapter until they end up with a manuscript that the author is satisfied with. And a good ghostwriter also knows publishers or has some kind of like publishing and marketing publicity wing to what they do. I'm stepping into that as well, just with some of the publishers that I know, either either self-publishing options or hybrid publishing is what it's kind of called, kind of a medium in between self-publishing and like those big publishing houses. So day to day, it's a lot of looking at Google Documents, a lot of meeting with people to discuss ideas, and writing or editing, or I'm also just learning in this season how to get better at sales and marketing and how to get better at business in general.
Yeah.
I am experiencing this like really strong urge to scale up in my business. So I've been wanting to like bring in subcontractors. And so I have for a few projects, and essentially they're doing some writing. I'm giving like the standards of what is expected, and then I'm editing what they do, and then making sure that it fits the client's expectations and what they want for all the deliverables of it. So that's a whole new territory as well.
Oh yeah.
So
it's like a whole different kind of muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll definitely jump into more of the writing and the business side of the copywriting and ghostwriting specifically, and how we're connected, because I'm excited to share some of that in just a moment. But before we do, what I also want to talk about, just in mentioning like the part of the who you are side, you did an internship through the church that we're connected to, Living Water, up here in the Olympia, Washington, Lacey, Yelm, Washington area.
Yeah.
And that when I moved up here with Holly and our, at that time, 1 year or 2 year old son, 1 year old, almost 2, and then we had Bo. I think you actually showed up at my house on moving day. Is that correct? Did you help move with the rest? I don't know if you were a part of that group of Anthem students that showed up. You may have not been. It might have been the first years.
I'm gonna say no.
And you probably
just
were
so I'm not
year.
taking credit for something, because I don't think so.
You don't remember lifting a bunch of unnecessarily heavy things into a 2-story house in Tumwater? Okay, I'm sure you've done
Not
that
ringing
before.
a bell.
Okay. You're right. You know what it was? It was the first year Anthem students of that year, and you were, I believe, a second year at the point that I moved in 2017.
Yeah, I was going into my second year to intern in
That
young
makes
adults.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, but you know, jumping in, I was a youth pastor for a couple of years, and you were a part of the ministry through Anthem in your second year, helping with young adults. You were also an adult leader in a season with us for your youth ministry, and you've been a partner in ministry for years as well with that. I mean, you've preached both in our young adult ministry and played in the worship team. You've done tech and production, and then even in recent, since we've launched Living Water Lacey, you've come in, you've preached for us and been a part of that. You were a part of kind of us even more officially for a little season. You and your wife Lauren. Lauren was our youth administrator for 2 years when we first got here. In fact, she was the first person like we met connected to Living Water outside of Pastors John and Fawn, was like texting us and communicating before we officially moved up here. So there was totally a connection with the two of you separately, and then even more so together over the years. But one of the things, man, I have loved about who you are is your love for Jesus, your love for the Word of God, your love for authentic discipleship, and not just like accepting everything that the church does or doesn't do as like just, oh yeah, it's good. Like there's this, I think, really healthy challenge side of you that has got this wise analyzation of, okay, are we doing all the things like we could be doing, or the most effective way to reach people in discipleship and for the gospel? And you've challenged me in that way multiple times throughout the time we've known each other. You've also really challenged my leadership. There's also been several times together where the Lord has really used you to be a person in my life that has helped me see some of the blind spots in my leadership, which I'm so thankful for, because it's not always that people that are able to do that genuinely can call things out, but also remain committed to the relational side of it. I haven't seen it very often, and you've been that in my life, and I'm super thankful for that. And you're just an incredible communicator. And when you preach and teach, like, I can't wait for it. Like I'm really, even now, I'm looking forward to the next time I know I get to sit down and hear you preach the Word of God. You've had some incredible messages that I have grown from in your times of preaching and teaching. And so there's just a lot about you that's prior to this season that I would say merits you being a part of the 52 project for me and making an impact in my life that stands on its own outside of what we're here for, even more so today. But I'm really thankful for that, man. You know, and you've been a friend, but a ministry partner in seasons, and you and Lauren are near and dear to Holly and I. And I'm really glad you're still in the area, because for at least now, I don't know what the future holds for you guys. We're better as a church, capital C church in Thurston County. I know the church that you guys are a part of and helping continue to invest in the Local Olympia and just Foursquare as a denomination. It's just better because of the two of you. And we're better. Holly and I are better because of the two of you. So just as an opening thank you, that lays some of the groundwork for why you're sitting in this chair across from me today as somebody who's impacted my life pretty significantly.
We appreciate it. And that's the other thing, or the other couple of things, I guess. If you look at my Instagram bio, it'll say something like, I'm a husband, I'm an author, I'm the operator of a business, and then I'm a pastor. And that is at the Local Olympia, aka online, it's the local.church. And that is kind of what we call a missional model church in our denomination, same denomination as Chase. And we are the youth pastors. So we have, I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 20 kids each Wednesday. And we are committed to we do things a little bit differently than a standard youth group, or at least the ones I went to growing up, where one week we come to our house and pack into our living room, and it's chaotic, but we hang out, eat food, and study the word together. And then the next week is an invitation week. So we ask the kids to invite kids at school or people in their life to an event. It could be going to the park together, could be watching a movie at the theater. We just went and saw Mario last month.
Nice.
Yeah. And we did Puss in Boots. It was awesome. I love that movie so much. I just had to say something about it. But different events around the city and just have fun. No strings attached, and getting to meet kids, I think, who otherwise wouldn't feel comfortable walking into that, youth group can be so, I remember I was so intimidated by it.
Oh, for sure.
When I was a teenager. And so to answer your question about being local and being in the area, we are coming to the end of our first school year as the youth pastors there. Yeah. And we have decided we want to stay youth pastors there until the oldest kids of the ministry graduate, which is awesome. 3 more years. I think the oldest is going to be a sophomore
this upcoming school year.
Yeah. So we want to be there for, I think, 4 years, which is a lot longer than some youth pastors do it.
Yeah, I think the industry standard is still 18 to 20, 22, 24 months. It's under 2 years. So
yeah, I understand why. There's so many reasons why I think that happens.
Sure.
And it's really not a knock, in my opinion, against people who that's their story of youth ministry. It's just we feel like a specific call. Yeah. We want to walk with these kids through their entire high school experience, and it's going to be special.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of investment, though.
Yeah.
It can be so chaotic.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And the last one is podcast host.
Oh, bro.
So I'm on episode 4. He's on episode 21.
Before we jump into that really quick, just quick shout out to Pastor Beth and Peter Green, because they, as the lead pastors and the ones kind of heading up the Local Olympia, they're just, we got to be a part of the team together all at Living Water for a season. And they're just incredible leaders, and the way that they love their community and are willing to just do whatever it takes to reach people for Jesus and come alongside people. I just really respect, and I love the way that they've just made space for other leaders like you and Lauren and others in their, kind of in your guys' leadership team and stuff. And so anyway, I want to communicate that because they're special people and have obviously are a big part of your guys' lives in this season. Pivoting.
Absolutely.
Coming back to, dude, you have a podcast.
Yeah.
What are you doing on my podcast? You have your own podcast.
I'm trying to steal your audience.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Yeah, welcome. You're welcome,
YouTube.com / Cody Churchill. I'll take it from here.
Yes, yeah, dude. Welcome to the marketing business side is kicking in. I can feel it. No, let's talk about that because, you just mentioned your 4 episodes, but this is going to release on Tuesday.
So it'll be 5 episodes in when this comes out.
Right, because you've
already loaded into YouTube.
Because your first episode you released on the same day that I released our episodes, and and you're like, wait a minute,
this is awkward.
And then you decided to jump back to Mondays, from what I can tell. Which, bro, I was like, dude, there's hundreds of thousands of podcasts that release on Tuesdays.
I did Mondays not because I was conflicting with you per se. I did it because it would give me one more weekday to do short form YouTube content.
Sure, which is great.
And it just felt weird too, though. Yeah, when we were just both launching and posting on all these social media outlets. About,
and we have a lot of mutual.
This is my podcast.
A lot of mutual friends and different people. But bro, there's so many things I can say. So, name of the podcast?
Churchill's Cabinet.
Churchill's Cabinet.
It's a play on Winston Churchill and how he had a bunch of wise people around him helping him make decisions.
Yeah.
And so I'm framing it as I'm young in business and entrepreneurship and leadership and all this, and I'm trying to bring on people who have something to say, who have some level of expertise in those areas and can kind of guide me. And I ask them just a bunch of questions to get all of their wisdom and experience. Like the one that's going to be launching a day before this is a career coach. So he told me, like, here's how you can find better satisfaction in your career and how you can choose the right career for yourself. And that's valuable knowledge I wish I had 10 years ago. Yeah. But I'm getting it now.
Yeah. So you'll be 5 episodes in.
Mm-hmm.
And what was like what helped you go like, okay, I'm actually going to do this? Like, how long did you want to do a podcast to then, like, what was the thing that was like, okay, I'm actually going to step into this now?
Yeah. So I'm a millennial. So I've always had the dream of starting a podcast in my heart since I was a teenager.
This isn't every millennial's
dream is like, one of these days I will be a millionaire influencer with a huge podcast.
Yes, you will.
So it's always off and on through adulthood, but I never had any serious ideas for it.
Yeah.
My friends would be like, oh, we should start a podcast about theology, or we should start a podcast where we just talk about video games, or we should record like our Dungeons and Dragons sessions and put them on a podcast, stuff like that. And I thought those were all great ideas, but then I realized, like, podcasts are hard. Like, it's so difficult to consistently put them out. And my favorite podcast for a while was Andy's. So Andy was on a few episodes ago.
Yeah, he was.
He shared about Buddies Never Die. That was like my favorite. I looked forward to that podcast like every week. And they were like, he's a professional video editor.
Yep.
And they obviously have all their lives and things going on. But I was like, if even they have to pack it up after like a year or two of consistency, what am I going to do, like, for a hobby, you know? And so really what inspired it was the fact that it's part of my business now.
Right.
Like, it's my day job. For all of the podcasts I've seen, a lot of them that don't make it, it's because it's not their day job.
Right.
And so for me, it's essentially the centerpiece of the inbound or content marketing for my business now. It's an opportunity I get to network and literally learn more about how to be a better business owner.
You're educating yourself as you're doing it.
Yeah. And it's also an opportunity to meet people who could use my services, or know somebody who could use my services. So that makes it a lot easier because I know I can reserve like my 9 to 5 time to get it done.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, second thing was I have spoken to a few ghostwriters and professionals I admire, and the ones who have the most consistent stream of work have a podcast.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I was looking at some of the people in my life who have had a podcast and haven't during different seasons. And it seemed like the seasons they were most successful in business, as in getting the most consistent stream of leads, was when they had a podcast. And then you started your podcast.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, I really like admire and respect Chase, and he's committed. He's doing this thing where he's going to have a podcast episode every week. And I've already called you out in the past about starting things.
Yes, you have.
And so I thought you were going to peter out, dude. After like a few episodes, I thought you were going to be done.
Bro, I don't know if there was anybody that thought I wasn't.
And I'm so sorry.
Including myself.
Please forgive me for the lack of faith.
Not forgiven, because it's very merited.
But I saw you put out episode 4 and 5 and 6 and so on and so forth, until I started looking at your episodes and I was like, dude, we're in the teens now. He's doing it. Like, there's this phase, I think, at the start, the launch of any kind of, like, whether it's a YouTube channel or podcast or writing a book, where you start strong. Not just you, but people in general. They start strong, and then it gets tough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, hoopla around launching a new thing. People will like it and comment and give you a ton of engagement on social media. They'll talk to you, be like, dude, you started a podcast. It's so cool. Then you put out episode 2, half as many likes or less, half as many views or less. People just stop caring instantly. And it's not necessarily their fault. It could be the algorithm. It could be the fact that people just flock to new, exciting things. But anyway, the fact that you stayed consistent and like kept going month after month, I think you were like 3.5 months in when I was like, okay, on Monday, I'm hitting the record button. And so it started. And now you're long answer, but there you go.
No, that's great. And now you're 5 episodes in, dude.
Yep. Yeah. And I already have 6 and 7 recorded.
See, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So one of the things that I think I definitely want to press into more just to hear your perspective on is some of the business side of where you're at now with writing. This for me right here, I'm about to have a moment where I'm about to share something I have not shared yet from a public platform. Drum
roll, please.
I did share it with my quick shout out. I have a Patreon community. I shared this with my Patreon community just a few days ago. And then a few days after that, those who subscribe to my newsletter. So just like, okay, like I'm looking at the camera. Okay. Just a plug for the Patreon community. Like, there you go. Like be a part of that. You'll get to know some of this stuff early, this back, and all that stuff. But man, I've been something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And have even started to do, but like have been absolutely terrified of pressing through it is writing a book. And there was even a season in like right as COVID was kind of starting where I was like, okay, like I have to publicly like to say I'm going to start this because it'll help keep me accountable, which it did for like a hot minute.
Yeah.
And then I realized like I just bit off a chunk of something I had way too big for me to, with my life and schedule and things I just couldn't sustain. And then felt all of this has happened several times in my life. Like you mentioned, there's that like, that start, that flashy start. I'm doing this. And everyone's like, that's awesome. Like, way to go. And then you have a second, thing around it or whatever, half the engagement. It's like the honeymoon first, post.
You get this like dopamine and serotonin like surge.
And I think
right
there is something
start.
to the algorithms, right? Because like, you see somebody like on Facebook, for example, that says like life update, like on the top of their thing. And it's like, or
everyone sees it.
Right. Something around a kid or getting married or something where there's like that world or graduated something.
With Instagram, it's engagements too. And announcements like boom, straight to the top.
Right. And I think that's a real thing. And then, and so forth. So all that to say, I have had in my heart for probably 5 or 6 years, like this, like I want to write a book. And for a long time, there was this like from a podcast, book, YouTube channel, whatever, there was this like, so many people are doing this. And people within my own sphere, pastors, leaders, people that have influence in the leadership space have been there, done that, and are doing it. And the thought of being somebody who's trying to do that as well always created this, and I've said this before, but it's the reality, always created this like hesitation and apprehension for me of I don't want people to assume or go like, oh, you're just doing that because you think other people are doing that. You're trying to be like them. Right. You're a fraud or you're
perceptions.
The perceptions of what people, how they would perceive that. But then in this last season of stepping into the podcast and really seeing the impact that it's been making, and I just knew that it was time to step into it in a different kind of way with writing a book. Well, that's where in this last season, you and I have been more connected. And part of why you're here today in this season of my life is you have partnered with me to really coach me and help me in the writing my book process. Yeah. And I mean, I don't even know if you've got something that you're officially calling it yet, but we've kind of like tagged it as like Cody's author school is kind of where we're at right now. I guess I can.
I tried to buy authorschool.com, but it was taken.
I'm sure that was gone. But you are coaching me in a form of writing a book and walking with me each week. And I'm doing it. I'm writing this book presently with your coaching.
We put down words this week. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. And so I want to dive into that for a second. And so I'm writing a book. There you go. People that are listening to the podcast, and I'm super excited about it. I think, I think as of right now, if all kind of goes according to plan, it's something that will, be hopefully launched early 2024, is when we're targeting, kind of that to be completed and available. I'm loving the process, and also it's still like the most one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my entire life.
Gut wrenching.
Yeah, and this was one of the illustrations I've already told you a couple times, but like speaking of like working out and gym illustrations for a moment, which I know you love, like just from our conversations, like you just.
Dude, I have years of experience in the industry though, like. My first couple jobs were at gyms.
I know. It's very. You probably have more gym behind the scenes.
I call it the industry.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sick of gyms because of that, though.
That's why you're not. There's this writing book process for me has been like going to the gym and not being familiar with the gym, right? Like imagining that season of my life where like I came in and I was like out of shape. I have maybe never been in the gym before. There's
Yeah.
nobody there to help me. And I'm like coming in and I don't know where to go, what to do. I feel like everybody around me knows what they're doing and I'm the only one that doesn't. And the intimidation and the fear and insecurity. And then so feel that.
Right.
And then imagine you're naked. Okay. It may not be a great picture, but like that kind of level of like vulnerability and insecurity and fear of like, I'm in here. I shouldn't be. I don't have clothes on. I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone's looking at me and I look like a fool. That kind of like has been a little bit of how it's felt trying to write a book. And every week that you've been helping me and kind of really coaching me with it, I think I've gotten more and more confident and secure in it. But there's still moments where I'm like, this is really hard.
There's so many parallels between ghostwriting and like pastoring.
Yeah.
Ghostwriting, and because you get to become someone's confidant and you get to like tell them, here's what you should put in the book, here's what you shouldn't, and really unravel their story. Because that's all, a book is essentially a conversation between the author and you where they tell you stories.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's a textbook. There's no stories.
Yeah. Good point.
And so, one, it's been awesome to like get to walk on that journey with you. And I keep telling you, like, one, your feelings are like super valid. Like that's a real normal way to feel. There's a reason millions of people are sitting on a book idea or even sitting on a full book manuscript that they've never tried to publish. But also those feelings are common. When someone's first starting out in the process, it's exciting at first. And then you realize, like, just like I mentioned, this is a long and complex piece of written communication. And it's very few people can like have the know-how and the willpower and the lack of like, I don't know, worry about other people's perceptions. Like, I don't know if I've met anybody who's written and published a book by themselves without any kind of self-doubt, any kind of like period where they just kind of sat there for a little bit before starting on it or publishing it. And so, I mean, kudos to you for getting help and saying, I'm going to do this.
Well, and I think that's the thing. I think even back to the gym metaphor, there's something about going and with somebody else that maybe has a little bit more experience and has been there and has, can help you with different reps and different things that you're trying to do, different workout moves and all that. To come into that spot where I've got somebody who's not making me feel like an idiot, right? Because I think that's some of the fear is like, I feel like an idiot. And then to be around somebody who I'm afraid might make me feel like that is good luck. Goodbye. I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
You haven't done that. Right. And there's that. So you've invited me into that space where it's okay to be, like ignorant. You don't know what you don't know. And you're not making me feel like bad about that, but you're also inviting me into learning more and to stepping into that space and also helping me see like, I actually know and am capable of more than I am giving myself credit for.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, I think, such a beautiful part of what you do and what you're doing currently for me, but what I know you can do and will do for others, and I already have done, right? You've already helped other people write books.
Yep.
But I think that's huge. I want to encourage somebody that might be listening and thinking about that. To your point, a lot of people are probably sitting on books or ideas for books, and that there is such an amazing step to take to just go, like, I just need some help with this. And there might be somebody out there that's more equipped to help pull me into this and hold me accountable and really give me some of the steps to doing that.
Right.
That's been so impactful for me as I've stepped into this process for the last 2 months.
Yeah, if you think of it in business terms, it's a huge opportunity in the market. Is a lot of people think, oh, ghostwriting project, that means I need to spend 4 or 5 figures on this huge project end to end. And they're just going to take some ideas and then, it's not really going to be my book by the end of it, my words. And one, it is all your thoughts when you like hire a ghostwriter for the end to end kind of solution because of the way we strategize and interview and walk through the process together. But on the other hand, it doesn't have to be the end-to-end solution. It could be just talking to somebody week over week, getting their expertise on, here's actually how you should format your chapters. I remember one of our first meetings, we actually sat down and laid out it could change, the order and names of them could change, but we laid out the 11 chapters that the book's going to be. And we had a table of contents and we had a title page with your name on it and a logo.
Right.
And it just makes it feel real, And it also starts to kind of give you that accountability. I think personal trainer is a good analogy because, one, we've kind of set up a standing time to meet together and talk through the content of the book. And then I've had to modify quite a few exercises with you.
You've had to modify a few different homework assignments that I haven't completed on time or
Precisely,
at all.
Yeah, because when I do author school, what I like to do is have someone say, okay, like we're going to talk about what the next chapter is going to be.
Right.
You're going to write it, and then I'm going to review it before we meet, and then I do developmental editing is what it's called.
Sure.
And sit down and strategize it further with you, refine it. And yeah, the first couple times that I gave you a homework assignment of, okay, write this, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's not doing it. And for a second I was like, is this book going to happen?
Right.
And then we had a couple like breakthrough kind of conversations.
Yeah, we did.
What if we did this other thing and tried this new tactic? And I think we're on modified exercise number 3.
Yep.
And it clicked.
Yeah.
Like as soon as we figured out what to do this past Wednesday, we just laid down a bunch of words right in the manuscript.
Yeah.
And I saw how pumped you were after that.
Oh, dude.
And
I'm still pumped about it. And I think that's one of the things I'm loving about this whole process. It is the process. It's the like, you know, there isn't this perfect package formula, right? You can have your coaching program and your, you know, kind of your pipeline, right? Like that's what any good personal trainer, coach, teacher will have. But then I think where the real, you know, money, how do I say it? where you really are like the bang for your buck, like where somebody like you is coming in, is their ability to adapt and adjust to what the author in the making it needs in order to get the best out of them. And that's been so incredible to do, because what it's done for me, right, is, because if I'm being honest, like part of the things that I've even shared with you is I come to some of our meetings and I feel this sense of like I've let you down, because I haven't done what you've asked me to do,
which is ironic, because
some of
the topics in the book,
exactly, so dumb. But it's part of my personality, my journey, right? That's part of where the book is going. Yeah. But I recognize, like, you know, your ability to then take that and then go, no, like I'm here to help you along this process. Mm-hmm. Has allowed for me to get to experience the beauty of the writing process. And I've always struggled with written word. Always. Like I could talk and, you know, verbally express how I feel and communicate in like all day. And and I'd like to think most of that is effective and compelling, and I'm sure it's boring and monotonous for lots of people at different moments. You know, pray for my, you know, congregation, my children, my wife, all those things. But I could talk with my eyes closed. It's the writing that I've always just frozen up on and felt so inept to be able to do consistently, effectively. Right. And I think there's probably a lot of people that are in a similar seat. And there's probably people that sit in the opposite end of that spectrum, where, like, you know, they can't fathom the thought of standing in front of like a group of people and communicating, but they can crush some written stuff and feel like, you know, they're unstoppable. Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, you know, the difference between like soft skills and hard skills. A lot of people who are my clients are really good at soft skills. Like they're good with people. They can talk. They can improvise. You know. Yeah. And they're in a lot of contexts where they're leading, and sometimes having to make plans on the fly or put out a fire because so and so are having an argument and stuff like that, or being with people like a pastor, like being with people in some really like deep and broken and difficult moments while you're processing it yourself. And those are soft skills. And writing, I think people don't realize, is it's kind of a hard skill in some ways. Like it's not easy necessarily to sit down and crank out 3,000 words, 10 pages in a day to stay on track for like a writing project or like a ghostwriting project. There's some artistry to it, because I know when we think of like writer, we often think of like these really famous literary fiction authors, and it's so flowy and they have great metaphors and all that. What people don't realize is that really good final draft that they have was after like 150 wrong ways to say it that they just had to power through. Right. And so a good writer kind of has that combination of the artistry, but also just the workhorse mentality. Yeah. Like you really, it's just difficult because we encounter the same walls, the same writer's block, the same walls that the person who's like hiring us and working with us encounters. The resistance, if you will, it doesn't go away. Right. You just kind of get better at, okay, I'm going to chip away at it today. Yeah.
The thing that I think too stops a lot of people from stepping into that space, whether it's writing or even starting a podcast or something where it's communicating a message. And I talk about this a little bit as in the book, but also even in these podcasts, I've had these kind of moments where I've shared this as well. But there's this isn't new. What I'm saying isn't a new thing, and nothing is. Like, we know, like, nothing is new under the sun.
I've met some ghostwriting clients who honestly think that they have reinvented the wheel.
Well, no, I don't doubt that I no doubt that they do think that. But I think there could be this concern or this fear that, like, is what I have to say compelling based on the fact that it's, like, already been said before in, like, 7 or 8 of these different books in different ways, right? I'm just pointing to just leadership or principles, all those kind of things.
We talked about that on Wednesday.
We did, and that's what I want to bring up. Is I think it's a really impactful thing. It's been a good reminder for me that you've helped me think about and process, and that is, like, yeah, you're right. You could have a very similar message because there's nothing new under the sun, and yet why it should still matter that you are pressing into this and potentially share that message is because it's going to be the message shared from your voice or your perspective.
Right.
That might be the thing that impacts people in a way that whoever else already shared a similar message may not. And that's the thing I think I want to continue to encourage other people with that might even be listening today, is that thought of, like, if you've got something inside that you're like, man, it fires you up. Like when you wake up, you're like, I want to press into this today. Or you go to bed at night and you're thinking about it, going like, how do I continue to grow in this and help others grow in this? Whatever that is, that message, that thing that, like, drives you and lights a fire inside of you. If you're like, well, other people are already kind of, man, I don't think that you may be considering enough the fact that your voice, maybe even at the right time, could be the very thing that's effective for somebody else to hear and actually accept and receive, that could change their life or impact them in a significant way.
Yeah.
But you've been sharing those things for me as we've been going through this process, and that's been super helpful because there's totally those concerns and fears rise up, almost like waves. Like they go up, they go out, and then they come back in, and I'm like, you know what? It sounds like, and you've been helpful in reminding me of that.
That's what I talk about all the time. Is like, okay, C.S. Lewis has this speech called "Learning in Wartime." That's now an essay in, I think, The Weight of Glory. But he says the time will never be convenient for you to go and study and get your degree, because he's talking to some students during the World War II who are like, does it even matter if we get our degrees? Because what if we get invaded by Germany? Does it even matter?
Right.
And he extrapolated that to say, like, it's never convenient for you to go and write your book. It's never convenient for you to go and start your podcast. You'll never feel ready. You'll never feel like, oh, everything's lined up. I have everything I need. It's almost like you'll never feel quite ready to propose.
Sure.
Well, yeah, at least everyone I've talked to.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I remember I asked you, like, back in the day, like, when do you feel ready to propose? And you were like, no.
Yeah.
It's not a real question. You don't actually get to feel ready is the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, you'll never feel ready, so you had better start before you're ready.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people out there who have that manuscript, podcast, business idea, anything that they've just been dreaming on. And I like to say, you'll never know if it's for you until you do it.
Yeah.
And so, like, podcasting, writing your book, starting your business, becoming a freelance writer like I did a few years ago, if it's for you, you'll wish you had started sooner. If you start it and you realize, oh, this is for me, like this is what I should have been doing all along,
right?
You'll wish you had started sooner,
right? Because
you found out, oh, it is, and it's difficult and it's scary and it's full of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And something else that I told you, Chase, is you were talking about some of the self-doubt you felt, some like, oh, I don't know if what I have to share is new or if it's going to be relevant or it's going to connect with people. I feel naked and vulnerable. And I said, good. So has every single one of your heroes.
Yeah.
Before they did that thing,
right?
Or that person you see on YouTube with 100,000 or million subscribers, they felt that way. They felt like an awkward, just idiot in front of the camera at first.
Yeah.
I've helped write books for like really, really successful, quote unquote, influencers with just 6, 7, 8 figures of followers. And they'll tell you, oh, I felt so dumb when I first started.
Yeah.
I felt like no one cared. No one was going to listen to me. And the difference between them and the 999,000 other people that quit is, 1, they started.
Right.
And then 2, they kept going.
Yeah, they haven't quit yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, to kind of wrap up this segment of conversation, because I could talk about it for a long time, which we do when we get together, which I really do appreciate and enjoy. But one of the things that I guess one of the things I'm still tensioned by, is this sense of, well, this is a quote that I have been embracing more than ever in this season, from podcasting to writing this book now. And it's that, like, I'd rather start and fail than never start and succeed. Like that kind of idea of, like, doing something that does eventually end, that you do end up quitting. I'd rather have that, like, ability to go, if it was this for me or not, like to your point.
You get to find out it wasn't, and then you have peace. Right.
Oh, and most of the time what actually happens is, like, then it morphs into the next thing that could be better, right? So, like, sometimes it's that piece of, like, maybe the podcast doesn't work out, but now all of a sudden you have a greater insight and experience to another avenue that's actually more for you. But you wouldn't have got that if you didn't start and fail or stop, right? But I think the thing that I still wrestle with, and I hear about this with other people as well, so I know I'm not alone, and yet I've had to grow in just overcoming this, or getting past this, is this sense of, when I watch people start things and make it a big deal. I'm writing a book, I'm starting a podcast, I'm doing whatever it is, a new business, new this. I want you to buy into me in some way, or buy something I'm producing, or believe into this, follow me, like this, subscribe here, whatever. And then they stop that thing in a shorter amount of time than maybe I look at and go, was credible for their next thing that they start. And then they start something else. And then they might start something else. I guess the things I feel like I lose is, I lose trust or credibility or respect for believing what they're saying and inviting me into, because I haven't seen the stick-to-itiveness or the not quittingness, whatever the term is, endurance, longevity of the thing that they've started. And so there's that's a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of that is just the, like, why is that how I feel? I don't really know. But it bothers me. Right. I don't like that. And I'm repelled by that. And yet I also know what I just said before this statement is true. Like, I would rather start and then fail than never start and succeed, if it's right. And yet there's this piece of me that's like, I think part of what stops people from stepping into something is like, I don't want to be that. I know how I feel about other people that do this. I don't like it. I don't want to appear or be perceived like that to other people. So I'm not even going to start this, because, if they feel about me how I feel about that person or those people that do that, I don't want that. And I just wonder how many people are sitting in that boat. How many younger people, and I think even older people, middle-aged to older people, that might be sitting on this, like, I'm too old to write a book, or I'm too old to start a podcast, and what if I can't continue it or sustain it? I don't know. I'll just be one of those people that say, and again, I don't have an answer for that. I will say, now that I've been in this podcast now for 21 episodes, and I've seen what it takes to get here, and good Lord, has so much shifted and adjusted even over the time that we've started till now, from quality, video, audio, all of these different things, there's been a lot. And I know what it takes now to start some things, and the guts it takes to start some things that I've been afraid to start. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I know you've been in some of this space before. Yeah. But I just wonder how many people aren't starting or stepping into something because of that space of, like, I don't want to be like or perceived like those people that do that.
Yeah, so much I have to say to that. First, one, let stories like that be a stern warning to you and me.
Totally. It's great.
That the same exact thing could happen to us if we stop with our persistence. And if we say, it's not worth it, I'm going to quit. If it's something we feel like God's calling us to do, right, and we quit at it, right. I would say when I first started in freelance writing, I told myself this over and over. I would rather fail at something I love than succeed at something I hate. And it's not like I was out in the world doing something I hated, but it was just I wanted to get extreme with myself.
Yeah.
And this was something I loved deep down. So I wanted to fail at something I loved, or at least give it my absolute best shot. And that's the second thing, is there's a difference between failure and quitting.
Totally.
And our culture, and I think millennials in specific, but our culture, like, we're really good at different like fruits of the spirit, like love, kindness, gentleness. Like, there's not many millennials who struggle with like kindness and gentleness, I would say. But are we good at faithfulness? Or is that a challenge for us? I think faithfulness is such a gap in people, even me, you know, in different, this is like my 7th job that I've had.
Yeah.
And I've just now got to the point where I'm like, okay, Lord, I feel like you're calling me to do this for years and maybe even decades to come, and I'm committing to it. And something I've told the Lord in prayer is, I will fail at this, but I will not quit. Like, I will lose, but I won't surrender.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do this. And so it's almost like that leave everything and follow me mentality.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I believe I was born to do for my work. And so I'm going to pursue it to the end.
Yeah.
Not just ghostwriting, but also writing stuff that's under my own name and things like that.
Right.
And delivering these content interviews. And that's kind of like a calling statement for me, is I always want to be telling stories, and I always want to be writing and making disciples and preaching and teaching and counseling people. And I feel like I get to do all of that with everything I have going on right now. So I had better stick to that long middle, that continuous obedience, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
And so you have to consider, you know, if something isn't working out, are you quitting or are you failing? Because I think a lot of times we quit long before we've actually failed at it.
Yeah.
We don't get the views we want. We don't get the traction immediately. It's like, but how many people our age or others start it and then quit after 3 weeks?
Right.
Quit after 20 weeks, you know? And I'm not sitting here saying like, I'm way better than all of you. I'm doing this because the fact is I'm not essentially different than anybody else. And I've quit so many things in my life that I should have kept going, and I was in so many situations where I realized afterward I was in a way better situation than I thought I was. I was just quitting. I was just not letting my faithfulness be put to the test.
Yeah.
The second thing is there's wisdom in counting up the cost before you build. Jesus said, count up the costs before you build. Yes, like these projects, these things on our hearts will challenge our faithfulness to the core. Why? Because again, it's something I shared with you one of these Wednesdays. It's close to our heart.
Right.
So it's going to rock us once we actually start taking steps in the direction of putting out into the world.
Yeah.
It's going to shake us the way that something else we would pursue will not. There's a thing called like a shadow career where someone wants to be maybe a successful author. Instead, they become a literary agent. Someone wants to become a painter. Instead, they become an art teacher.
Right.
And I'm not saying for some people, they want to become a teacher and that's their dream. So I'm not knocking these things and saying they're like by nature inferior jobs or anything like that. What I am saying is people will pass up things that are actually closer to their heart and more vulnerable because they don't want to fail at the thing closest to their heart. Because if they do, what does that say about them? Yeah.
Well, I think then there's two things that come to my mind when you say that. One is that, especially for those of us that are following Jesus and are surrendering our lives to Jesus, we really do believe that there's a call that God has on our life in both like maybe an objective call or will of God and a subjective call or will of God to some degree in various forms. But bottom line, like if God's called you to something, you know, and we believe that and we're stepping into that, like biblically we can see a lot of precedent for this, and I've experienced it in my own life. Like there's going to be opposition. Like if you're doing
it's normal,
right? You're doing
the thing.
What God's called you to do.
Right.
That path is not going to be very easy to walk out, especially because in a kingdom sense, like it is going to be pushing darkness back. And we do believe like in the spiritual realm of things, like darkness is not about that. The enemy doesn't want men and women to step into the call of God.
Wants you on the easy path or the thing that's not close to your heart.
I think to your point about failing and quitting, I think there's a lot of oppositional moments that come in front of people that are pursuing and stepping into their calling or those things we're talking about, and they experience that resistance or opposition from really, I also think, the enemy at times. I don't think everything's the enemy. I don't think every attack or whatever is Satan and, you know, the devil did this, but I do think that stuff is very real. And I think that it's also, we need to acknowledge that there are times where just because that's there doesn't mean it's time to quit. That's one. Okay. But here's this other reality, right? And this is the question I think I'd ask you. And then wrapping into kind of the final piece of the question I ask every episode we'll get to, but some, like you mentioned, like someone that feels like called to be an artist, but then their shadow career, stepping into an art teacher, you know, for maybe middle school, high school, or college or whatever, which again, to affirm that's
from Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield. Honor where honor is due.
Love it. That's not a second best kind of thing per se. Right. Because I also think that there is a point where people realize like my call and passion is this, but I also like realize the even greater and deeper call and passion is helping other people experience this for themselves.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's part of that teaching world. Right. But there also is this real practical, and I think you're in this right now because you're literally putting your money where your mouth is, which is I got to like provide for myself and potentially like my family financially. And there's a lot of that collision, right? There's how many people are sitting in a job right now to some degree, and they're going like, well, yeah, of course I'd love to write books all day long, Chase. And that's what I feel called and passionate about. But I have to literally like make money right now to pay for my bills, pay for my rent, pay for the food to be put on my table for my family. So like, how do we reconcile those things? Where do we have the time to do that and the energy to do all that? I've got 4 or 5 kids or whatever else it might be. You're in that space right now, right? Where you're like, man, I'm going to give my life to, you know, preaching and teaching God's word, to writing, to communicating, storytelling, to counseling people. And you're in a place where all of that is also an effort to build into a business that is providing, you know, an income to help you provide for yourself and your family and your future. Like how do you balance that, right? Like for the person that's sitting there, maybe they're working a job they don't want to be working in, you know, but they're going, you know, again, there's so many books, there's so many ideas and principles, all of that. But from your perspective that you're sitting in presently, like you do not have a 9-to-5 job right now, presently working for another person outside of your own copywriting, ghostwriting stuff that you have some contracts. You are working for some people for them, but like, it's not like how are you doing it? And how would you encourage other people who are thinking that thought?
Yeah. It's complicated because I wouldn't encourage anybody to quit their day job, especially when other people are depending on them.
Right.
I think that's foolish.
Right.
And so for me, I was only able to get started as a freelance writer because one, I was going to school full time and I was basically living off of a student loan. And then two, my wife was working at the time. We didn't have any children and we had some savings built up as well. And so we had, I think, about 3 months of savings where
well done. Good job.
I just wanted to try it, you know, and say like, if not now, then when? Right. You know, because it's never going to be an easier time than right now. And right now it's kind of hard because I have a full-time plate of grad school going on. Right. And so I just kind of gave myself the experiment. It was September or so when I first started taking paid work. And I said to myself, you have until December to make this amount of money. Go for it. You know, with the 10, 15 hours a week that you have. Right. Because my day job was school. So I was writing 5-10 page essays every week. I was going to class 4 hours a night, 2 nights a week, sometimes 3. And then probably had like 30 hours of reading and homework to do. It was hefty. Yeah. It was part of the reason why I quit. That's a story for another day. Yeah. But I just distorted the 10, 15 hours I did have. And our energy will always go toward our highest desires, or it'll go towards what we want now. And sometimes I think the enemy subverts and tricks us into thinking that what we want now is what we want most, but it's not actually what we want most. Oof. And so all of us have the same 24 hours, the same 16 odd waking hours each day. Yeah. And there are situations where it's straight up not possible. I'm not one of those people that's like, you can do anything. You just have to grind. You just have to be super productive. Right. Like there's some people who are working 2 jobs to make ends meet and barely getting by, and more power to them. Like they are possibly sowing seeds into the next generation. Sure. And that is their highest and truest calling, really. And so if it's not for you, it's not for you. And if it's something you can't do, it's something you can't do. Yeah. But be honest with yourself. Right. Do you have that 2, 4, 8, 12, 15 hours to give each week into something that you can turn into something that generates income and revenue for you? Do you? If you took out all the Netflix, all the Hulu, all the TikTok, if you took out some of the social gatherings that you have, whatever it is. And if not, like, God bless you. Like, that means you're already slammed doing productive things and blessing the world.
Right.
So you're already winning in my book.
Yeah. I'm making a comment about that because I think this is even to some of the writing process that you've been helping me see. Whether it's starting a business or trying to step into something like that, writing, whatever. Sometimes I think the mentality we have is like, well, if I don't have time to do it all the way I want to right now, then I'm not going to do it. Yeah. When the reality is, like, even some of the writing thing, you've been like, if you, rather than try to sit down and for 3 or 4 hours at a time writing 3,000 to 4,000 words, if you took 45 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day and tried to hit 1,000 words, over time, the way that that's going to build and compound, to a degree, and get your muscles building more slowly, I think all of that to a degree can also be something people can consider. Well, maybe you don't have 15 hours a week to go and step into that space, but maybe you've got 30 minutes each, every, couple of 30 to 45 minutes every day. And you could do something that's going to help you take a step into that space so that when you do have more capacity in a different season, maybe now you're not starting from 0, maybe you're starting from 5 because you've been able to build. I think that's something that a lot of people could also consider to your whole principle. Maybe it's okay right now that you can't, because I just think that's been something that I've been able to see and learn.
Yeah.
Of course, I'd love to have like 5 or 10 more hours a week for making this podcast even more effective and breaking it up into smaller video chunks to send out to different places so more people will listen and be engaged. I got 4 kids. I got a wife I love and care about and want to get the best of me. I've got a church that I'm leading and a community that I want to reach for Jesus and so many other little things that I want to sow into. But I can do with a little bit what I'm doing right now. And I think probably there's more of that for people to think about as well.
Yeah, and it goes back to the self-honesty, faithfulness, counting up the cost.
Yeah.
I believe one day we will stand before Jesus.
Yeah.
And he will ask us, like, that life of yours, what did you do to serve me? What did you do to bless my other children, your brothers and sisters? How did you use it? And I want that to be as comfortable of a conversation as possible.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
want that to be a great convo,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I don't want to leave anything on the table.
Yeah.
And again, I might say, Jesus, I tried my hardest to start this business, tried my hardest to be, this husband, this youth pastor, and I messed up some stuff. And it didn't work out for me the way I thought it would.
Yeah.
But at least I'll be able to say, like, this is what I thought you were calling me to do. And I removed the things in front of me and I went after it.
Yeah.
And so we're in the in-between now. We'll see whether this succeeds over the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sent me a text when you started the podcast, your podcast, which, I'm so proud of you. I'm just so excited to continue to watch and see how that unfolds in your commitment to see it through to however many it becomes, what it becomes. But it was something along the lines of like, whatever the last Monday or Tuesday is in December of this year, you're like,
the 26th or something.
Yeah, and you're like something like, we'll celebrate on December. I forget what it was, but it was the whole point was like, you were already looking at the end of the year as like, like that's when
I'm a spreadsheets guy.
Yeah.
I mapped it out until the end of the year.
Well, I'm not a spreadsheets guy. I want to be. In fact, you shared a spreadsheet with me the other day because I was like, dude, I need some spreadsheet love in my life. So every episode has this question, man. And, I know everybody's got a different journey here when it comes to this, but part of the why of this podcast is to really help people get freed up from what's holding them back so they can build up who they were made to be. When you think about your life from the past and even maybe present, what's something that has held you back or is presently holding you back? And the B to that question is, how did you overcome it, or are you overcoming it right now?
It's funny because I listened to the episodes with Andy and with Jones.
Yeah.
And such a similar answer. You might expect me to say, oh, it's something about, hustling and working on this new business. But the truth is, over the last year, I've really, God has given me a word for the year every year. But the last few years, he's given me like a 2022.5 or a 2021.5.
Yeah.
Like a new word has been coming. And so my word for 2023 was dedicated. And there were 5 areas God showed me where he wanted me to dedicate myself. And I did. Like I've started working harder and longer than I ever have, not to the detriment of relationships, because that's also something I'm investing in heavily.
Right.
But I was like, Lord, thank you. I feel like you've really disciplined me in the area of learning how to treat my business like my business,
Right.
and be a professional. But now I realize there's this gap in my life of I don't always allow myself to feel the love of God for me. It's such a deep realization I had, I think at church a couple weeks ago. No, I was doing Devos with Alec, and it was in 1st or 2nd Peter, but throughout the entire 1st or 2nd Peter, he always calls his audience beloved. Beloved, do this. Beloved, don't you know a day for God is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day. He's addressing them as beloved.
Yeah.
And it just popped out of the page to me because I'm like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that word. I don't believe that I fit in the category of beloved by God. Not all the way. Not in a way that it actually reduces fear and anxiety and depression in my life. You know?
Yeah.
If I really felt the love of God, would I be so worried about my business's finances? If I really felt the love of God, how would it impact how I show up in my marriage? And so I need the fact that I'm a beloved child of God to bleed deeper into my heart, into my psyche, my soul, through the next half of 2023, because everything in my life's going really well in the sense that on paper.
Yeah.
I looked at all the main 7 categories of my life. Jesus, marriage, family, work, friends, ministry, and hobbies and fun. And they're all great. Green lights, Yeah. There's obviously things to improve. There's things I can tweak and get better at. Always room for improvement. But if I look at it objectively, take a step back and detach from it, they're all going really well.
Yeah.
And so why do I still feel depressed and downcast? Why do I still feel anxious when I wake up about this or that? And I think it's because, similar to what, Josh and Andy were saying, do I feel the love of God? Do I feel like I can lean back on him?
Yeah.
That he's my father, that he's going to take care of me? Or am I just trying to take care of everything myself? And now that all 7 plates are spinning and they're in the air, why do I still feel that way? Because I was never meant to shoulder that burden.
Yes.
I wasn't meant to be the main provider or main taker care of person.
Yeah.
So I need to learn that.
Yeah.
Really learn that.
Yeah. It's really good. Yeah, I think a lot of people can and will resonate with that. I know I do. I know that I definitely want to, even leaving this conversation today, press into that thought more just for my own life of I don't know if there's a bottom of the barrel there. I don't think you can arrive and hit it. I think there's always going to be space to go deeper in experiencing more of God's love for you. And so that's
Andy had this picture of kneeling before God and not looking at him. I think my picture would be more stiff arming God. Don't come any closer.
Yeah.
Don't come into this
space.
Space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been reflecting on 1 John 3:1, I think. What love the Father must have for us that we should be called his children.
Dude.
Just
so good.
Reflect on that.
Yeah. So good. Thanks for sharing, man. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing with us part of your journey today. Thanks for walking with me. The excitement and anticipation I have in this journey, in this season, writing this book and continuing to spend time with you, get to know you. I mean, I think part of what I consistently like going to the gym for is the guys that I know are going to be there to show up and I get to see and talk to and continue to grow in a relationship. I love exercising and I don't love it. I'm enjoying it more, it's still a challenge, but I'm really, what pulls me in there, like Andy mentioned, and different people in podcasts are in the gym with us, is that the relational side. I'm even finding that with you more and more with this book writing process, is showing up to press in and do the work and process that out, but also to spend time with you and get to know you. I look forward to that. I really enjoy it. I leave feeling better, not just as an author writer in the making, but as a man and a lover of Jesus and stuff that in the ministry space. So looking forward to more of that. And yeah, man, this is a big episode for me. Just to finish this thing up for me, 21 episodes, hitting that 1% mark of podcasts, significant. And I'm celebrating that today. It's a big deal. And I do want to continue to press on and encourage you to do that as well. And I know you will. And sharing that I'm writing this book really more from a public standpoint with people, to invite them into that journey along with me more. Now that I've shared it, I'm going to start talking about that more and inviting people to kind of go along a little bit more for that ride.
You want to share the working title? Oh, maybe just the Patreon.
How about this? Yeah, the working title. There you go. The working title will be on Patreon. That's right. Yeah. You want to know the working title? Jump on my Patreon community. Listen, Patreon. Listen, $5 a month. You could for a cup of coffee. You could be a part of the Patreon community and help me continue to get the message of this podcast and more. And really, the book is actually going to be part of that tour. And for those that have already supported me on there, I love you. Thank you so much for being a part of that because it means a lot. But yes, I'll save that for there. It'll probably come in the next few weeks, but it's a huge deal to have you in my corner in this season, and I'm really thankful for you and in your friendship, your investment into me as a leader, like I mentioned earlier, now as an author, and partner and continuing to partner in ministry, and it's just been a privilege and a blessing to me and my family. So now I just got to get an invite to join you.
Yeah.
Which
you actually have, so let's not push this back onto me. You've been on the spreadsheet for a while, buddy.
Technically I've been invited, but we need to get it scheduled, which again is on me, to be a part of yours. And so, okay, we'll put all this in the show notes, but how can people find you? And whether it's like, man, they want to write a book, or they want to, be a part of, like, maybe checking into some of your services for the copywriting, ghostwriting space, or the podcast stuff. Like, where do people go to connect with Cody Churchill? Yeah.
So CodyAChurchill.com and ChurchillGhostandCopy.com. They go to the same place. And if you feel like you should write a book, I will start teaching you how, even if you don't have any money. Like, I'm really passionate about helping authors become authors. That's something I would do even if I wasn't getting paid. So we can just have the conversation. And then my podcast is called Churchill's Cabinet on Apple, Spotify, and Google. And then my main source of content right now is YouTube, youtube.com/@CodyAChurchill.
Yeah. And if you listen to this and subscribe already to this podcast, go over and listen. Churchill's Cabinet, subscribe, follow. It's on Spotify, and is it on Apple? It's on both those platforms, and probably more. So pick your platform that you're listening to this or watching this today. It always helps, especially as we're getting started, the podcast space, for people to go over there. And even if you don't listen to everything or whatever, go download, go follow. All that stuff really helps us kind of just continue to increase visibility and connectivity with people. And I know you won't be disappointed, because you're going to go get encouraged, educated, and learn from Cody and the conversations he's having, as well as just, man, you're just really good at what you do, and you're continuing to get better and better at it, from preaching, writing, podcast hosting, etc. So lots of great things in store for your future, and for your ministry, you and your wife's ministry. I really do believe, as pastors, your kingdom impact is already making a significant difference, but it's going to continue, I believe, to do that in the days and years to come. So with that, my friend, thanks for joining me today on the podcast. Until next time.
Thanks for being my friend, even back when I told you what I really felt about you.
Bro. Yes, you're welcome. And thanks for being honest and still loving me.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.